I come from a family with a long and complicated history of favoritism. My parents, particularly my dad, have always had a soft spot for my younger sister, Amy. She's 25 now, and I'm 28, but the truth is, it was clear from a very early age that she was always the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in their eyes. I don't know if it was something about her sweetness, her ability to charm them, or if it was just an ingrained preference, but from as far back as I can remember, I was always second. When I was 5 and Amy was just 2, they threw her this extravagant birthday party that I can still picture in my mind. There was a bouncy castle, a petting zoo, and professional face painters. It was as though they had no limits on what they were willing to spend. Meanwhile, for my birthday that year, they arranged a small family dinner and bought me a store-bought cake. It wasn't even a full cake, but rather a little round one from the grocery store. I remember feeling so embarrassed when my friends at school asked about my birthday party, and I had nothing to say. As we grew older, the disparities between how they treated Amy and how they treated me became even more apparent. While I had to make do with what I earned or saved up for, Amy always got the newest toys, the most attention, and endless praise. I remember saving up my allowance for months to buy a new bike when I was 10, and I was so proud of it. But when Amy saw it, she threw a tantrum, demanding one for herself. Without hesitation, my parents went out and bought her an even better bike than mine. School was another arena where favoritism reigned. They went to every single one of Amy's school events. They showed up at her gymnastics meets, her school plays, her talent shows. But they always missed mine. I remember when I was in 4th grade, I had the lead role in the school play. It was the highlight of my elementary school years. I practiced every day after school for weeks, and I was so excited to finally perform. When the big night came, my parents showed up an hour late, missing my big scene. The excuse they gave was that Amy had a tummy ache, and they needed to comfort her. But I later found out she was perfectly fine, and they just lost track of time playing with her. I couldn't help but feel invisible, overshadowed by her. Every time I achieved something, my parents barely acknowledged it. But when Amy got a B+ in her weakest subject, they threw her a celebration, complete with a new phone and a fancy dinner at a restaurant. It made me feel as though nothing I did was ever good enough. High school was especially hard. I threw myself into everything: debate, the school newspaper, academics, sports, desperately trying to earn their approval. I had a 4.0 GPA and even became the captain of the debate team, but no matter how hard I tried, it was never enough. Amy, on the other hand, barely managed to pass her classes and spent most of her time partying with friends. The worst part came when I was selected to attend a prestigious summer program at Harvard. I had worked so hard to get there, studying late into the night, preparing for my SATs, and building my application from the ground up. When I shared the news with my family, my dad barely acknowledged it. He changed the subject to Amy's upcoming dance recital. The night of my flight to Harvard, my parents couldn't even be bothered to drive me to the airport. They had tickets to Amy's recital, and they didn't want to miss it. I had to ask a friend's parents for a ride. I had always tried to push past the feelings of neglect and focus on building my future. But the lack of support from my family took a toll. I struggled with depression and anxiety throughout my teenage years and into my early 20s. When I finally went to college, I started seeing a therapist. It helped me understand that it wasn't my fault, that my parents' behavior wasn't a reflection of my worth. But that didn't make the pain of their favoritism any easier to bear. Despite all this, I managed to make something of myself. I graduated college with honors, secured a solid job in finance, and bought my own house by the age of 27. I had accomplished all this on my own, despite the lack of encouragement from my parents. When my paternal grandfather passed away, it felt like the ground beneath me shifted. Grandpa had always been a silent pillar in my life. He wasn't overly affectionate, but he was steady, and he had always treated me with respect. I always admired him for that. He built a significant fortune from nothing, and when he passed, the will reading was an event I had been anticipating. The will, to my surprise, stated that my share of his estate was substantial, about $500,000. It was more money than I had ever dreamed of. The inheritance would allow me to pay off my student loans, invest in my future, and even consider starting my own business someday. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had been seen, that my efforts and achievements weren't entirely overlooked. But when the will was read aloud, I could see my parents' reactions change. They were upset. Afterward, they pulled me aside and told me they thought it was unfair that I got an equal share. They claimed that Amy needed the money more. She was struggling, working part-time at a coffee shop, and living in their basement. I was taken aback. I tried to remain calm, explaining that this was Grandpa's decision, that he had made the choice to treat his grandchildren equally. But my parents were relentless. They pressured me to give my share to Amy, insisting that it was the right thing to do. When I refused, my dad's anger flared. He started guilt-tripping me, reminding me of every small thing they had done for me. He mentioned paying for my braces, something that was medically necessary, buying me school supplies, and allowing me to live at home during college, though I worked part-time to contribute to the expenses. He conveniently left out the countless shopping sprees, the car they had bought Amy, and the fact that they were still supporting her at 25. The situation escalated quickly. My dad, as the executor of Grandpa's will, announced that he was going to reinterpret Grandpa's wishes and give my entire inheritance to Amy, on top of her own share. He argued that Grandpa would have wanted this if he knew the circumstances. This wasn't just a painful blow, it was also illegal. Grandpa had always made it clear that he believed in equal treatment for all of his grandchildren. I tried to reason with my parents, pointing out that Grandpa had always supported my academic and career ambitions, but my mother accused me of speaking ill of the dead. I reached out to my paternal grandmother, Grandpa's widow, for advice. When she heard what was happening, she was furious. She revealed that years ago, my parents had approached Grandpa, asking him to leave everything to Amy. But Grandpa had refused. He'd always said he wanted to ensure that all his grandchildren had equal opportunities, and he even included a clause in his will stating that anyone who contested the equal distribution would forfeit their share. Looking back on everything I've gone through with my family, I finally understand that family is not solely defined by blood. It's about those who support, respect, and stand by you when you need it most. While I still hold love for my parents and sister, I've come to realize that my worth isn't defined by their approval or by the favoritism they showed to Amy. I no longer need to earn their recognition to feel validated. My relationship with Amy has continued to heal, and we're rebuilding a sibling bond on our own terms, free from our parents' interference. We share more of our lives with each other now, supporting one another in ways we weren't able to growing up. Seeing her take responsibility for her own future inspires me, and the connection we're nurturing is one based on mutual respect and understanding. My mother, to her credit, has shown signs of change. She has been attending therapy and has taken the difficult step of reaching out to apologize for the favoritism she showed. I can sense the sincerity in her efforts to repair our relationship. Though we still have boundaries in place, our conversations, however brief, have started to hold genuine warmth. She has even expressed pride in my choice to help others through family therapy, a career path inspired by my own journey. I've accepted her apology, though cautiously, because I know that true change takes time. My father, on the other hand, remains steadfast in his denial. He clings to the belief that he did nothing wrong, that I am the one causing division. While this stance still brings pain, I've learned to accept that I can't change him. By prioritizing self-care, I no longer feel the need for his validation or approval, though a part of me wishes he could see things differently. His absence in my life will always be bittersweet, but it no longer controls my happiness. The unwavering support from my grandmother and my grandfather's legacy has helped me see that true family is about those who stand by you unconditionally. I find great comfort in her stories about my grandfather's pride in me, knowing that his belief in me has given me the courage to stand my ground. His inheritance wasn't just a financial gift, but an affirmation of my worth, one that I now use to forge my own path in life. With this new phase of my life, I am choosing to embrace the future and focus on building healthy relationships. My experiences have instilled in me a desire to help others through the work I do, and I am pursuing family therapy as a means to provide the support I once needed myself. This journey has taught me the importance of boundaries and of self-respect, and I feel empowered to create the family environment I've always longed for, a home filled with understanding, fairness, and love.